Okay. You guys see what I'm sharing on the Zoom? Okay. All right. Okay. So this is welcome to van training, everyone. We're going to try to make this a bit hands-on. So I'm getting the feeling that some of you are pretty new to it or haven't done a lot in van yet. My name's Craig Wilding. I'm a data analyst and political science major. I'm also the van admin for Seminole County. Been that since 2018. I also work with the Florida Data Directors Council, which is a council of all the van admins across the state. So we're trying to find all the best practices. Here's what works, what doesn't, to get to spread on to you. Okay. And on that note, if you've seen this, what I had up here before was like, this is where you can go for training resources now. The Data Hub, that's where the FDP, the van admins up there have their links for all their training information, a lot of that. They have a team office, a training weekly team office hours that if you have questions, you want to ask, they can help step you through it. They have an office hours thing where you can like sign up for 15 minutes, 30-minute session, and they'll step you through it. They also have a series of new user trainings for van. You can sign up for those series to get training there as well. And that's going to go over a lot of what we're going to go to today with how to create like your first list, how to find it. But then also it's a whole series, okay, how to make a list, how do you print that list, how do you make a turf for canvassing, how do I create that into a mail list, how do I do training, texting, different sources like that. The other two links here, there's this with the Florida Data Director Council meeting. That's another training site where that's still in progress. We're putting it up now. But it's also a site with where you can see getting started with the vote builder, and there's a lot of this is a lot of the previous training for how to create a list that was out there that'll step you through step by step as well. So if I rush through it fast, there's other stuff out there. So if you want to go to the next step after creating a list, there's more stuff out there you can get to. You'll be copied the presentation to everyone who signed up, and the links will all be in here for you guys to follow. So with that, it's going to be a bit more hands-on. All right, so I'm going to be switching between the slides and van itself. So in between here, make sure which one. Not you, means you are my van one. You. Okay. So we'll be going through van. And one of the first things I want to show up here is, so this is the main page that you'll get to. Quick lookup is if you want to look up a specific person. Like if you're like at our SEMDEM's office, someone calls up, say, hey, can you check my status if I'm in van? Are they a Democrat? Things like that. You can do a quick lookup of that person, search by their name, address, cities, and find out if they're registered to vote or not. You'll be able to find their record. So I guess let me explain what van is. So van is our voter database. So all the voter files that we get from the state that has everyone who's registered, this is our database interface to that. And the organization of it is you have folders to store everything, and everything then you just have searches to go find it like you would with the database. And the folders are there for saving the query you did. So I'm going to save that query. So when I go run it again, I don't have to create it from scratch each time. That time. So that's the overall plan architecture here. So we're going to show you how to create one of these lists or how to create a search where to go save it. and then how to refresh that and do more with that. So So with that, so the next main thing here is going to be, there's a view my folders. Now, I have a ton of folders because I do a lot of work. You may have absolutely none. Um, which over here is like the folders I recommend are like these. You should see one for statewide that should automatically appear for everybody. There'll be one for my turfs, templates. That's what I'm calling the stuff where you want to save your stuff. So I'm calling it like a template as like I stored, here's what I want to search for, sort of like fill in a blank template type thing. That's what I'm, if you want to call it something better, but that's, that's where like, if you want to just call it my stuff, that's great. That's what we're using that folder for. Texting is another folder to save list into. I'll get into why later, why I have a separate folder for that later. But generally it's like, you want to create, if you don't have a folder, create one now. Under folders, there should be just like a create new folder and just name it like my stuff or your name. Actually, yeah, better put your name on it because your admin will see everybody else's folders. So don't all name it the same thing.
You said under my companies, right? Or my,
Under my folder, so right in the very middle of your page.
no, I mean on the top navigation. Currently, you're in my folder.
I'm in my voters up here.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's where we should.
yes. So my voters up here, that's the main place we do everything. And everything we're going to talk about today is always in my voters. So, you can do that.
Okay, that would be
Okay, so yeah, go to my folders, view my folders, and then add new folder. Just put in your name, say my stuff. So you'll have a place to save your stuff today. Okay. Now we're going to go over creating a new list. Okay, so I'm going to start with create a new list. There one there? Okay. So if you're new, you see a lot of the bars with names on the left. Probably none of them are opened up or anything sort of like this. And on to the right of those, there's a little there what looks like a star outline. So what you want to do is pick our top favorites and move those to the top. And I got a screen to show you what those are, like our most commonly used stuff here. So you want to find one that says like home districts, party. If you see those, click the star. So this is so that those should float to the top so that you can find them easier later and not not have to go hunting for these every time. So that's what that star does. Very quick shortcut to stuff. So party, age, voting history, scores if you have it, phones, canvas status, and then the last two, if you have time to get those. But we'll do. Okay, I'll give everyone a few minutes to go through that list. I'll explain what these are while you guys sort of firm. So home districts is what county you're searching in, what house district, if you're a house district candidate or a Senate candidate or school district candidate, what district number you can narrow your search to by that. If you're a local precinct captain, you can put in your precinct number and do that. So that's the first way of narrowing the list down to your smaller district, your part of the world. Party is just what you think. Democrat, Republican. It's NPAs here in Florida for independents. There's a couple others for like Green Party, Libertarians, or others, but they're generally grouped into other. Age is exactly, you can search. I do a lot of searches for under 40 for our millennials and Gen Z to target on media ads and texting. Over 65, I do a lot of phone banks for landline people because we got a lot more response there. So that's what we use. I do a lot of age based on the differences on that. Voting history is, did they vote in the last two elections or not? I can find that out. That helps us to find, if you're a Democrat and you voted in the last two elections, I want to contact you to invite you to all our events to say, hey, are you want you want to help us out? Here's what, if you want to find your people most likely to volunteer, they're the ones also most likely to vote a lot. So that's what that's used for. Scores. That's that statistics thing where we get scores from nice targeting companies that say, you're registered as an NPA. Do you lean left or do you lean right? Which, should I include you or not? We use a lot of scores to tell us that. A lot of scores to tell us if you're Spanish speaking or if you prefer speaking Spanish. Is another common score we use. Number 6, phones. It really helps to have a text bank to include only people with cell phone numbers, or exclude people that don't have a phone number from your phone list.
So other apps that you use to do text-based, do they pull from Van or do they pull their own list?
They pull from Van.
Okay, so get into like.
Okay, so most of these texting tools will pull the list from Van, or you will export the list from Van and import it into the texting tool. So, and there are other tools I got for in-between tools to pick the best phone number from Van, because Van has a preferred number, which maybe your landline, but if I want to do texting, that's not the number I want. So we've got some other in-between tools to go in between Van and the texting to say, pull the best cell phone number for texting. So we're trying to do that. Okay. All right, everybody ready? We can move on. Okay, so I'm gonna bring back Van up. Well, first, other thing I'm gonna show is, so who are we targeting? Okay, 3 main targets. The big circles are Democrats. They're our happy Democrat base. Some of them on that voting history, our Dem base is the ones that vote every year. Voted the last 2 or 3 elections. They're great. That's our base. There's the warm Dems that maybe they vote in the presidential years, but not in the governor years or governor races. So that's sort of like a warm Democrat. But that's who we're going to include in first. That's our base. So we're going to make a list to contact them. Second group is our NPAs, our independents. So this is where I mentioned sort of like the scores earlier to say, here's how I'm going to pull the independents, but I don't want to get the really right-leaning ones. I only want to talk to the ones that like us. All right, and then a third group is our under 40, are all our young voters, because we found the other 2 categories generally skip them. If you use a score, especially on younger voters, because you've only had 1 or 2 elections, and the score is based, well, how many of the last 5, 10? Well, you've only had 1, your score sucks, you fail. Yeah, no matter what. So we're gonna automatically include our younger voters. Oh, so that's the 3 things. So, all right. Can you monitor the chat IT group?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Everybody keeps that.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to, nope, not you. All right, so minimize that. All right, so move that over here. All right, so we're into new search. So we said first group we want is our Democrats. So we're going to find the party one and select Democrats. That's going to give us all our Democrats for now. You can do refresh strip over here, so you'll see them. If you do preview my results, you'll see how many people that gives you. Okay, awful. I'm going to come back up to under the home districts. I've got multiple counties here, so I'm going to just do one. And then to show you, I'm going to do a house district just to show how that narrows it down. You don't have to do. Okay. But if you want, if you were like a precinct captain and you wanted to put in your precinct number, you could select that here. That's where you would do that. Okay. All right, everybody there? That's step one. You got all your Democrats. Okay. Then on the right here, there's this add step button. So we're going to add a second step to add people so that we find, now we're going to go after our MPAs. That was our second target. So, I'm going to select my district here. And kind of, here's where it says no party, independent, and others. Generally, no party affiliation is where they all are. Independent, somebody got clever here in Florida, said, I'm going to create a party called Independent, so everyone registers for me. And that's why we call them NPAs in Florida and nowhere else. Again, it's Florida. Okay, if you can add the other two, independent and others, you'll pick up other parties like Green Party or Libertarian Party. It doesn't usually add a whole lot more people. So adding it or not hasn't made too much of a difference. Okay, could be I'm shaking the podium. Okay, now we want to know, how do I know the left-leaning MPAs versus the right-leaning MPAs? And for now, we have under targets. Everyone's find that one? Okay, because we did some research, we create a quick, easy to use target called left-leaning, that's LL MPAs, target tier 1, tier 2. So we did some research and we found there's 2 tells on our MPAs to find out if you're really the right-leaning MPAs or not. Number 1 is if you live in a household with only Republicans, then you probably also lean right just like they are, because you're listening to the same crappy news, everything else that they are. So, birds of a feather are being together. The other interesting tell was the COVID effect. So we know if you stood in line, not voted by mail, not voted on early vote, if you stood in line on election day in 2022 amidst COVID, stood within 6 feet of your neighbors without a mask, it shows up in the data. And you are a very right-leaning person. So that was like the 2 tells of how we filter out those people. The good news is everyone else leans left. Everyone else likes us. So
I don't see those. Yeah, I don't either.
okay.
The bottom, so they just check them off.
In that case, we'll go to weight method number 2. If you don't have those, and we'll come back to targets in a second. Do you have a scores one?
Yes.
Okay. So scores, I mentioned this earlier. It's the statistical mathematical way of saying what's the percent likelihood this person leans Democrat versus Republican. So we have a score here. I see the top one for me is DNC Dem Party support score. Okay, and what number do you think we should put in?
I'm trying to remember back. 75 and up,
No,
or was it lower?
it's actually the reverse.
Oh,
Because people think, oh, 50-50 split for the MPAs. No. It's 1/3 leans Republican, 1/3 iffy in between, 1/3 leans Democrat. So if we only want to cut out the people that really lean Republican, then we can do anyone like that 33% and above. So anyone who scored more than a 30 really, really low, we can include. Does that make sense?
and the read more when people.
Yes, yes. So if you click these buttons, they actually got, yeah, the read more gives you a more detailed breakdown of what each of these scores mean, what they're doing. Another one, so this is what I was saying, the Spanish language preference score. If we're trying to do a Hispanic speaking phone bank or text bank, you would do like 60 and above, because that means,
I'm sorry.
oh, you want to
We're,
switch?
we're gonna plug ours. I know this does not cause that blinking.
Okay. That means I'll have to scoot closer. Oh, this is like, yeah, yep, it's back. Okay, we'll deal with that later.
It's gonna apply that actually.
Yes, that would. You don't need one.
I think we're good.
Excuse me. So I have access to the tier 1 and tier 2 left leaning, but I don't have access to the scores.
Okay, that's a good notice. Okay, if you don't have access, then submit a data ticket to FDP and request access
Okay.
to scores.
That
That
applies to
is
both of us.
both, yeah, so that there's in the training slide, that first training slide, there should be a slide for the data ticket. If not, I'll make sure it's in there. Because that level of permission gets set at FDP. I can grant you some access to like folders and stuff, but that scores one is at FDP. So if you don't have it, ask FDP. It's one of those things like they don't give everyone it to everyone by default, but now that you've been trained and know are smart enough to ask for it, they'll give it to you. They say, hey, now that you know, so you're not playing around with this. Okay, so
That applied to the campus reports as well. So should I ask for both at once?
yeah, anything permission wide, like if you don't have something I'm showing you, then that goes up to FTP. So if it's some of the buttons for creating a cutting turf or exporting a list or creating a phone bank, that's your local DEC admin can do that. Scores is FTP level. Okay. But these are like the two scores I use most. One, scores telling, does this independent person lean left or right? So I wanted to use the low number for that. Spanish language preference, a high number means they're really likely to only speak Spanish versus that's sort of the trend of like an older Hispanic person may have only, may have come from Puerto Rico recently and not learned English, whereas younger groups probably are very bilingual. So you really just, so to be Spanish specific, like I'm really going to do a phone bank or a text that's going to be go out in Spanish, you can use that higher level of the Spanish language preference. Okay. Everyone caught up? All right. Yeah. All right, we're going to refresh. See how many people we got now. Yeah. Wait, let me take out my Spanish. I don't need Spanish right now. Okay, then, all right, if everyone's caught up, we're going to add our third target. So we go back to add step, add people. And who remembers what our third target was? Yes, all right. Quick learners. So it's under 40 crowd. So before we go down to age, we're going to select any Democrat or NPA. If they told us they're Republican and they're under 40, they're committed to it. I mean, that means they grew up in this age of Trump and said, yes, I'm all in. So we don't want them. We want anybody else. Then down below, we should say age. I can just do, you can leave from and just do 240. So you'll see, if I refresh over here, it'll say age less than or equal to 40 over there. Okay. All right. Preview, get a good count. Preview will tell you everything's working. If you didn't miss something. All right, this is the last thing. I'm going to run this search next. Everyone caught up? All right, here we go. All right, so this is our number. This is our list. So you'll see all the names that it found that match that search, that match that value. This is what I mentioned. There'll be buttons for printing, making calls where we make phone banks from. Export is how I export a mail list. Count, if I want to count how many Democrats versus MPAs I got in here, that's what that tool is for. But right now, let's go over here. See the save list as? Let's save this so we don't lose our work. All right. So you get everyone on this screen. You got two choices: save list versus save search. The saved list is a fixed list. Like one time, that's it, which is good for printing something, and it's also used for like the text banks want a fixed list right now. When you're passing it off to one of the other text bank tools, they want a fixed list. What we normally save is our saved search. So I'm going to click that one. We're going to say new search, not replace an existing search. But the good news here is it's with replace. Notice how replace an existing search is a whole separate option. That means it's really hard to accidentally overwrite something else. You'd have to really, really intentionally do it. So go ahead. So have some confidence in saving because you're coming through. So select that folder you want it. So we created the folder earlier so we could have it here to save into. I'll give it a name. And this was our get out the vote. I'll search. So actually my naming convention, I usually like to call them all search. What am I searching for? I get out the vote list. What am I using it for? This is my default. I'll call other ones texting, a phone bank if I add criteria to narrow it to phones or texting later. But this is my default get out the vote list. And I begin it with the word search because when I go search later, people ask, what do I search for? I say search. Easy to remember. All right. Okay. Then you can go back to my voter or just hit run search again, and we'll go back to where we were. Okay. Next, I want to narrow this down to be a phone bank. So first, I'm going to add some more criteria to narrow it to people with phones. So I'm going to get, there's this edit search here, edit existing search, and I'll go back into there. Now, at the bottom here, where we were clicking add step before, I'm gonna do it as a narrow people. So I'm gonna narrow it down to people with a phone. So I'm gonna look for the phone targets from my favorites. Eventually. Okay, so it's showing phones. Okay. And there's a lot of redundant fields here, but there's two we want. Type of phone. So I want their home, a main phone. Please don't call their fax machine. And we'll also include cell phones. All right. If you're doing a text bank list, this is where you would just select the cell phone number. Hopefully only get people with cell phones. That'll help narrow it down there. Okay. The second one we'll commonly use is is it a cell? We got a little bit of information of whether it really is a cell phone. The options are verified, likely, not a cell, or so. If we're doing the old-fashioned robocalls, then you would take off cell phones and do not a cell. Does that mean because you can't robocall a cell phone? If you wanted to do a text list, you might take off the home and main and just do the cell phone and then do all three of these except the not a phone. Why all three? Because that data is very inaccurate. The only we've done this before, and it's like a lot of these likely not a cell come back and said, I had no problem. I didn't know. So
Is there any concern regarding the type of phone numbers, quality as well?
that's what some of these extra scores are. There's like a phone call quality or text contact score. That's sort of like a score number for how likely am I actually going to talk to somebody if I call this person? Or how likely is this text actually going to get someone, like if I'm trying to do volunteers, how likely is this person actually likely to respond to me? So if you're trying to be more specific, those are okay. I don't know how accurate those are as well. I usually don't deal with them, especially with texting, because I'm just getting such bulk text anyway.
About 10.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now we've narrowed it to a phone bank.
What about that option? Select those, if not want to be contacted.
I usually don't do that here. That goes into the next part.
Okay.
Where this canvas status. So I'm going to include only actually, let me do that back. I'm going to exclude. Let me do that. I'm going to leave my do not text one, do not call there. And some of these are for canvas knocking on door status. Some of these are for phone texting. But so this is where I'm going to exclude anyone who's told me do not text before, because that's the most accurate place. Because that all the texting tools and stuff usually fill that one in very good, whereas the others are just sort of guess or best guess. And all right, I have a cheat sheet on this one. Come back over here. Not that cheat sheet. Not quite, almost. There is. Okay. So this is the ones for a phone bank that you want for this list. So, deceased, we don't want to call dead people. Disconnected, you would think you don't want to call them to exclude them, but they're disconnected and wrong numbers are automatically removed. You don't need to repeat that again. So what that, if you do, what we're finding is if this person has a disconnected number on their list, that takes that person off, not just the number. So the number's already been pulled. You won't get the disconnected number in your list if you include the person, but you'll still get other phone numbers that person may have. Okay. So that's my little warning disclaimer at the bottom. Disconnected and wrong numbers, they're automatically removed, so you don't need to do that. So who we're talking is like, yeah, do not call, do not text for text banks. They moved. We don't need to call them. If they're hostile, definitely don't call them. They told us they're not interested. You can or can't, then up to you. It's like, I sort of take them out because if we actually reached that person and they told us, I don't want to talk to you, then well, I've got 3,000 other people in my phone bank and text bank to move on to. I don't need to bother you again. So that's why I filter them out. It's not, you know, I mean, because it means I actually reached them. You told me not, go away, stop calling. So I marked it as that. Similar with refused, threatened and hostile, definitely take those off. And vacant means similar like move. I think to take those people off. So we actually get people, not people who've left. All right. Everyone get, I'm not gonna change all those. I'm gonna just leave that. Am I refreshed up here? Okay. I'm gonna go run the search so we're come back to our main page where we have the list. Okay. Now, so you can do it a quick save list as, and like rename this one as the phone version. Or you can replace the old one if you want. So it'd be selecting the folder again. So now I would call it like phone, GOTV. So now it's a phone list. If people are getting this pop-up, say, are you sure you want to load this search? That's just saying, I'm going to replace what was on my chalkboard of the previous page with the exact same list that I'm rerunning. So that's what it says. It's like you got one chalkboard for it to write on. It says I'm clearing that, put this list on it. You're good. You're not losing any data. Again, that's why I mentioned it earlier. It's really hard to lose your searches once you save them. It doesn't automatically overwrite what's there if you change things, unless you deliberately go through and save it and change it. Okay, how are we doing time-wise? Okay, so now the next part is if we're gonna like set up a phone bank or a text bank is we need a script. So to do the script, let's see. So I'm gonna come up with a script. In the script, I'm gonna have a couple components. First, I gotta add the greeting. I have to say, you have to declare your organization. Say, hi, Janice, this is Craig from Seminole Democrats or Orange County Democrats or Rainbow Democrats, whatever group it is, you have to identify yourselves as part of the greeting. So you can't just be mysterious caller number 3. Then you want your message, which is like, usually that's what you're asked, or 1 to 3 points that you want to get across to help sell what your ask is. Are you asking people to renew their vote by mail? Are you asking them to come join our environmental rally? Are you what are you asking them to do? And I got a note here, it's okay for your volunteers to put that in their own words. So a lot of times we write scripts and they sound good on paper, but then there's this thing called breathing that when you actually say them, it does not sound the same as it did in your head. So feel free to reword it towards actually physically comfortable. So, and the other message is like, don't think too hard on it, and let your volunteers or people like put it in their own words, like how they would say this to a person, so it comes off more genuine and authentic. So, because you can be more convincing when you put it in your own words and aren't just repeating a script. So just getting like telling people, here's what our ask is, here's why it's important, get this across, let them word it from there. You're good to go. You don't have to be, you don't have to debate every last word here. This isn't the text message where that's your only shot. You can actually still be human here. Okay. The last part of there's, like I said, there's an ask. What did you want them to do? Do you want them to register their vote by mail? Do you want them to go to our environmental event? Okay, so that's your ask. And what we need to record that is a survey question. So we're going to have a question in there that has our responses, like I'm going to, yes, am I going to go? Yes, no, maybe. Can you text me the link to the vote by mail renew, or can you email it to me? But questions like that. Another survey question we commonly use is our Democrat affinity. That's just a scale. Was the person we called happy? Did they hate us? Did they really, were they, good, bad, indifferent? Usually put that in there. So better or worse, we got that at least gives me, you need to have one question so that we can track whether they actually talk to somebody or not. So if they talk to someone, then they can answer that question. I can see the results, count how many there are to see how many we talk to. The Democrat affinity one, besides telling us, oh, great, they really liked us, I also use the no responses, like strong Trumps. Like if I have a canvasser, they get to a door and there's Trump signs everywhere, and they say, I don't want to go knock on that door, they can just mark it as strong no or strong Republican and go on to the next door. They can politely skip that. I don't care. And I can take that door off the next list I generate. That's what I use that for. So, and good news is there's already a question for that. So in survey questions, there's already this Dem support ID that you see here, strong Dems to strong GOP, that we can add to our script already. It's already, so if we all use the same question, then we share it between all the groups. That means whether you're a candidate, whether you're the county, Orange County, CEC, or you're just Rainbow Dems, if you all use the same ones, you'll see those responses and be able to take out the bad people we don't want across all those teams. Does that make sense? Okay. Other questions they put in here is like the vote by mail ask, would you like to enroll to vote by mail? Yes, no, already insured. So I'm not going to go over how to create these survey questions to sort of shorten time, but there's some default ones in there already that you can use to help build a script with and stuff. So we're going to go. Do you want to step through creating the script to see where it is, or set that up? I think we got time to at least go through the steps and include where that is. So I'm going to come back to home. And if you're on the menu over here, it's, let's see, scripts. And you can do add a new script. I'm going to call this, hey, my new script. All right. I'll even call it mine. Okay. All right, so first you're going to give it a name, what it is, give a description of what it is if you want. The other one here is campaign. You may or may not have this set up. what I use it for is I have a couple campaigns going. So if this is default Seminole County, I select ours. If I'm helping out a specific candidate, I'll select theirs. And that helps me later this when I pull results out of the system, they want to count like Natalie or Carlos will need to know how many people, how many doors did we knock on? How many people actually answered? Setting this campaign committee helps me find the ones for that weekend or for that we did for that group or that person. So that's how you can help share information between groups if you setting it up ahead of time to do that. Okay. Next.
Wait.
Same with me.
Okay, that is a permission level at the county level. You can ask your county person to give you some so. And that's sort of normal, because we reuse a lot of the same script, like here, like I got my get out the vote script from last year. I'm gonna reuse that and just change the who's on it. You know, I or the search criteria of who I'm calling now. The script's sort of like, okay, here's, you know, so I don't reinvent the wheel every year. Here's the script I'm going to use, or change the wording for this year, change our message a little and do that. If you're doing more for like, if you're being like more like a precinct captain stuff, then you would have your scripts and stuff there. So do we want to continue with scripts or do you want to go to more like, how would I enter the phone bank or go or do turf creation or something else from there? What do you do you want to continue with this or go on to like
I would like the turf one would be really helpful.
okay, we'll go to that again since we don't have scripts. Okay. In that case, I'm going to go back to my list. And the first thing, since cut turf isn't available, it's because I have way too many people. So I got to be under 5,000 people. I'm going to come back to my search. And on my last step where I narrowed people, there's an edit bar to edit that particular one. I'm going to use this top home districts to narrow it into one specific precinct. And that should hopefully knock my numbers down to something far more manageable. I think it said 5,000. Also, while I'm here, I got 297. That's because of the phones. I'm going to take the phone stuff away. Because now I'm doing a walk. Okay.
Right, would it be possible, if this, like this for my purposes, might be for the going show how if you want to see people who voted in the last two primaries.
We can do that. All right, that.
I'm just curious on the word, which I got, what I got. I know I didn't get there, I just don't know.
Yeah, so of all that was in the top 8, and it was voting history. So if I want to do anyone, so your choices here are any or all, exactly. Usually I do any or all. Like if you voted in any of the last 3 elections, that's what this is. So it's any, and then I just choose the elections. If I do all, that means you had to vote in both the last 2 elections. So that's my really, really hot voters. Okay, so that's sort of the difference. If you want to find people who just voted by mail, or like who voted by mail in 2020, you can find those as well.
So what would you use exactly for? I mean, the difference between all and exact. If you had like, if I want to find the last two.
It's sort of like exactly, it's like if you voted by mail this year, but you didn't vote this year, like that cross match type thing. I don't use it a lot. It's usually any or all, all for finding my really hot voters and any for did they vote in one of them. Good question. Good question. Okay. All right. I'm gonna come back and start this search.
People on the phone, did you show them where you selected, somebody missed that step where you selected the precinct number?
Oh, the precinct number is, yes, so it's this home districts and then precinct. So if you wanted to filter it just to one precinct, that's where it is. Under county and then precinct. I think you have to select the county first and then precinct becomes available. Because it's sort of a fill as you go to not overfill. Okay. All right, good questions. Good. All right, now
You have to get 105,000.
yeah. And that's reasonable. It's like 3,000 is usually what I try for one precinct because okay, so I'm gonna start the cut turf tool. And you'll see two numbers on the right. The left one is the number of people and the right one is the number of actual doors. So how many actually, how many doors to actually go knock on? And then you'll have the map of where it is here. Okay. And from here, you just start clicking and surrounding. Right. Now tells me I got 73 and 59 people. What my experience has told me is that people get tired after about 40. So I'm gonna try to trim this down. And I also want to do, if I can, get some nice neighborhoods around. It's like people, the volunteers really like if I start in the same subdivision, I just walk around, the loop tilts me back to where I parked my car. Awesome. Unfortunately, not everyone's like that, and you're going to get some of these that are going to be more spread out. But that's the fun game at this point, is trying to, how do I draw these to where, hey, if I select this one here, I'm sort of connected to these people, but I'd have to really go, I don't want to try cross too many major intersections. I don't want to have to get out and drive way up over here just to come back to the other. So that's the little trick and games you play with this little tool. But it is, that's the turf cutting part of it. Here. You just start clicking around and it adds them. So okay, oh, okay, yes, yes. You have to,
Yeah, but it's an address.
yeah, so you have to come back to your first part to close it.
And it should show up on the right.
They are funny dots, so yeah. Okay, and you can also notice I zoom in here so you can see the actual intersection, see the actual subdivisions where the houses are.
So Craig, what are those numbers actually? Like turf one, it says 61 out of 49.
That means there's 61 people, 49 doors. Yeah. Okay. And that's how you do that. Okay. I'm gonna hit save and finish. I'm gonna, this is where I told you to create a turfs folder. If you want to create go ahead, save it in your previous folder if you didn't create a turfs folder for now. But you should create a separate folder for turfs because the maps save a separate list for every individual turfs. So if I have 3,000 people in my precinct, that's going to cut 30 turfs. I'm going to have suddenly a folder filling up with 30 list in there, and it's going to get really ugly. I don't need it there. That's why. So that's one of those. Yeah.
You're a miracle worker.
Yeah, so that's one of those, yeah. Once you've done this a while and you realize, wait, I've got all these, my folder is filled up with all this stuff. I can't find the real searches I want. That's where that's where you learn, create a separate. Yeah, so I'll show you in a second how we get the numbers for minivan to people go on their phone. Those numbers expire in 2 weeks, but the turfs stay forever and ever unless you delete them. So they do not clean up your folder forever and ever. So they stay out there. And on that note, I can show you some of the advanced tricks for turf cutting. So using the fact that these turfs stay over and over. So also first thing, so there's this under canvassing, there's this turfs. That's a nice folder that will save anything that's a turf should now show up under there. Which is why you can save it off in any other folder and not keep it away from your searches. You can always go here to find all your searches. No problem. Okay. And you should be able to find from here. So say this is my canvas. All right, so on the right here, so I can view map, that'll bring it back up so I can edit again, draw more rectangles. Refresh, let's see, did I do? Here's a trick, refresh means it's going to change all these numbers to the latest query. So I drew this in 2020 or 2022 after redistricting each of the squares. Now I can refresh it to get the numbers from this month, and the map, all the squares stay the same. So I can just update the turf.
So I'll come on out canvassing, they give me like a generated number that has the cut. How do you, like, once you generate a turf, how do you generate your cut? Or how do not?
That's what's here. So that's here. So you should see print region here. Do you have print region or print for minivan? Okay. So print for minivan gives you, that'll print a spreadsheet that just has the top list of all the minivan numbers. And that's it, like a quick table of the minivan numbers that you give to the volunteer, say, hey, put this in your phone. You'll bring up the minivan list that way and do it there. Print region will actually create a PDF that has some of the turfs on it and the full printed list if you want to do that. I actually still do that for the reason that we found canvassers like to see that map. They really, yeah. You don't have to print off the rest of all the full list, unless you have someone that, I got one or two people that really have trouble with their phones, that they want the printed list, but they love the map.
Bundle. In the middle of
Yeah.
with the list, and elastic and there's the extra. And you basically do it by term, and you always have like all of the benefits laid out.
Yeah, so we create our turf packets. So you get an envelope, we put the map in there. The map has the minivan number on it. They need to put in the minivan for their phone. Then also the packets then have our voter guide or the candidates list or stuff. Each to count it out to the number of doors that they're supposed to hit. So if they have each, so they can take their little packet and go to that, have just enough lit with them and go to that area. And knock on their doors. Yeah.
The envelope helps so that your hands are all sweaty, and you're not getting all the way to the lid,
Yeah. Okay. All right, so if you're printing it here, I do have this in the PowerPoint. This is selecting what script, contact how, walk. All right, so there's two tricks here. One, this contacted how, walk, that means campus. Same with walking list default for the format, that means for canvassing. There's other options for phone, text, postcard list, and corresponding formats for that. Here's the other trick. There's a script up here. That's what appears on the printed list. Minivan campaign is what that tells what script shows up in minivan. So if you don't, I have this in the slides, how to sync these two scripts up. So a lot of people leave this blank, and then everyone who downloads minivan doesn't have a script in it. It means they can't answer the questions I want them to answer, or they can't report that, they'll get the list, they'll get the addresses, but they don't get the script to say, I talked to this person. They loved us. They want to volunteer. They want a yard sign. But I can't tell you because you didn't fill in this minivan campaign stuff. So.
And then is there a box to check that?
Yes. Okay. These are up here's what all the columns you want, but that's on the printed list. Doesn't really matter for minivan. Then there's print map, so that's how we get the maps. Then you also want to print all the turf at once. So that puts all the maps to the top of the PDF. So you can print off the map portion of the 20 turfs and just print those, leave the huge 800 pages of printed list unprinted. Otherwise, you're doing 1 page of the map, 20 pages of list, 1 page of map, and you got to go through and find the map pages, print it off, scroll down, find the next map. So this puts all the maps up at the beginning. So your team and when you're creating these lovely packets, you can just print the top 10, 20 pages, you're good. Okay. So that's the magic secret of doing that. Really nice. All right. I'm gonna click next. We're on our way. It says it'll show up in my PDF files. Just go click there. It says it's in progress. I'll wait. Still waiting. All right. Then download the file. Here we go. Okay, so here's the table of all my turfs. On the left is that list number that goes into minivan that people enter into their phone. And this creates a nice little checkout table so that the canvasser can leave their name and contact phone number so that you can text them afterward, or if you if you're saying we're gonna canvas today from 12 to 2, at 2 o'clock, I can text them to say, hi, are you okay? Did you die of heat stroke? Yes or no? Yeah. Hopefully no. But it's good, it is Florida, it's good to check. So, so always good to get their, phone numbers of people so you can, and to give them yours, so if anything gets back, like, hey, I walked in this gated community and they locked me in. How do I get out? Yeah. Check for that. Then what you're seeing is, here's the actual script that's going to appear, should appear in minivan, and then the lovely turfs that the volunteers can see. So you see, this one's beautiful. I can park my car here, go all around, come back to where I park. Lovely.
Good to do that, to check to see that your volunteers are actually doing it right. Because you can, maybe repeat this, in the film, you can go in behind the scenes and see which minivan user was assigned which curve, and be able to vet and audit their quality of data collection, and they did actually not. Invite them back again or not, or maybe enhance your training more so that people will practice better bats. That's, somebody, called Kelly somewhere the other day and was like, don't ever send that man out to knock on another door on your behalf. And she was like, how do I tell who that was? She wasn't even in there. So yeah, I think you'll be fine.
Okay, yes, it does track everything. It tracks, so when you sign into minivan on your phone, that's why it requires a login. So so we've got that name that you created for the login on minivan, and it tracks every time you check a door that I talked to them, I left literature, I just left the literature, whatever, it tracks all that. And it has all that, so we can find, we'll see, did you make it all the way through? Did you only get halfway through? Are you still working on this? So we know whether to expire them or not, should I wait? Should I let you finish till the end of the week to finish before I submit all this data? So things like that. So we do see it on the other end. But that also brings another good question that I had prepared here, which is some of the responses. So these are our result options that we set up on the script. And it's also like, if you talk to the person on the phone and like they didn't answer, or what to respond there. So if you talk to the person, that's where you go to the survey question, say that dim affinity, great, they loved me, no, they hated me. If you knocked on the door or you called the person and they weren't home, there's what I call the red button that gives you a bunch of that gives the person, the volunteer, a bunch of options of what they selected. That's what you're seeing here, is which ones they are. So like a phone bank, there's disconnected. That means you called, you got this number is no longer in service. Marked it as disconnected. Wrong number. You got somebody to say, no, this isn't Frank. Yeah. Marked it as the wrong number. Move on. If you called someone, they speak in Spanish and you don't, mark them as Spanish, because then we can add them to our Hispanic phone bank and get someone who does. Yes. So we can find them back, helps us find those people back later. Do not call. If they ask you not to call them back again, you can mark that. If they start screaming and yelling at you, you can mark them as hostile. On hostile though, we prefer if you could verify that it's actually the person you called, because a lot of especially with text and phone numbers change a lot. So the number we have may have moved on to somebody else so if you can verify that is that person and they're being hostile, mark it as hostile. If you can't verify the person, just mark it as wrong number and it'll take that number off. So that's what we're recommending there, because I don't really, if it's hostile and I know and they say, yeah, it's Fred, it's like, okay, I'm making sure never call Fred again. If they just yelling at me, I don't know if it's Fred or not. So it's like, I don't want to call this number, so I'm gonna mark it as wrong number to get it off my call list. But I don't want to I don't want to tag Fred as being hostile, because I don't know. Okay. Then others, bottom three here, are pretty much what you think they are. I left a message. Not home is the generic default, like, you called, you got their answering machine, it was full. Leave it as not home and move on. You know, or I didn't know anything you don't know what to put, leave it as not home and move on. That's sort of like the default.
Are we still leaving messages if someone has a phone machine?
We are, it's been one of the things we've been debating. And the, so like, because you get different advice from candidates and FDP and stuff, and I think the going consensus is if you leave enough messages, then like texting will start to have an extra effect of somebody of listening and get the message, even if you didn't actually talk to them. You'll definitely get better results to people you actually talk to, but eventually, like it's a numbers game with all of this. You know, it's like the same reason. Yeah, there's 500,000 people here in Orange County. I'm only going to get to call 3,000. You know, if I can leave a message that gets me 3% more response, do it. So, because it's really just that numbers game we're playing.
Yeah, that's what the lady was looking as well. She said that she's actually been recognized in the supermarket by her voice because she left so many messages. They might not listen to your phone call, but they will listen to the message,
Yeah.
even like read the transcript. Like, okay, cool, the Democrat called me, maybe I should call back. Again,
Honestly,
right?
I don't listen,
I would
I don't pick up on any call.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just listen to messages and text.
Same.
Yeah, would you have to start landing the plane?
Okay, so I think that's a good place to save it off. So in here, I got a separate one for if you're doing the canvassing, similar thing. So yeah, they're hostile. They moved. In other words, that person's not here. Vacant. The whole house is gone. That'll take everybody off of that, off from that address. The other one here, interesting, is I have inaccessible versus like gated. I usually try to pull out gated areas. I have a whole different method for that. But if you get to an individual house that's gated or so, just mark it as inaccessible. Inaccessible could also be, it's gated. It's got a really mean dog. It's got the no trespassing sign, or the no, or a whole bunch of no soliciting. This means just okay, just tell me and we'll take it off our list to not go there. So you can mark that as inaccessible, and I'll move on to the next house on my street. It's not, it's like the little numbers, just taking them off just means I go on to one more somewhere else.
On homes with a gate where you have literature dropping off, I carry little baggies with a rock inside and I pitch it over the wall or the fence or whatever.
Okay, and also let me state the rules here. So now rule number one, never put lit in the mailbox. That is a federal offense. That's like the one federal law you can get busted for. Two, no soliciting. We can technically ignore because our good politicians decided not to count political stuff as soliciting. It's gone up to the Supreme Court. It's the easiest way to it's one way you can explain it the technical way. Oh yeah, it's Supreme Court decided, or you can say, yeah, the politicians carved out their exception for themselves, and that pretty much explain it real quick. The actual no trespassing actually is one we're not supposed to be on the property then. So if they say, so if there's a no trespassing sign, then you're not supposed to be there, and you can mark it as inaccessible.
I thought.
Slightly different. I mean, and it's just like, and if they put a sign that says no canvassing, that means they they read their laws and know how to do this and really put a sign just for you. So do that. But also on that advice, it's like, I love one. I went to one door. It said, no soliciting police, or don't ring the doorbell, please, don't make it awkward. Yeah, like, I'm like, okay, I can respect that. I'll mark it as, inaccessible, so I don't knock on the door, wake them up, whatever. It's okay. Okay. Just be polite with it. It's like, I don't know if they have kids, maybe they work at night or sleep in the day, who knows? They don't want to be disturbed. It's like, and pissing them off to to make them come to the door isn't going to help. So just drop the lid and go on. Don't try to train them on the law. It's not going to go over well. Just go. Be happy.
Your time is better spent hitting 2 more doors.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Any other quick questions before we go?
Could I access these slides? A copy of
Oh,
them?
I'm gonna email them to everybody who registered.
Wonderful.
Everybody on the Zoom already has them, and then we're gonna send a recap email with all these links.
And then you said access to the data ticket for FTP was on the first slide.
I think I left it off. I will follow up with that.
Is it just the support requests thing that you see?
Yeah, it's.
If everybody could be so kind and help me load up the chairs here, not the ones with the lines on them. The plain ones without them, the silver face, not the silver. face.
All right, I will.
These lines of the 5, they don't stack.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
Yeah, there's some chairs that have lines on the side. Other
Okay.
ones-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the ones with the vents across, they stack.
yes, please.
They're like,
That was- that was so- okay.
Hold on.
Craig,
Yeah, thank you so much.
I appreciate you, I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
This. Oh, and submit it.
I'll be there.
Yeah, okay. All right. I had a feeling, but I want to make sure.
So, we're man.
Yeah, they do. It's helpful.